The Numinous Podcast with Carmen Spagnola.
Hi there, and welcome to the Numinous Podcast, where we have interesting conversations with everyday folks about the mysteries of life. This new season is brought to you by The Threshold Community, a new online collaboration between me and my dear friend Holly Trular, where we gather with like-minded, collapse-aware people to tend the threshold in the twilight times of the world as we've known it. Together, we are going to explore collapse preparedness and attachment theory, trauma-informed practice, somatic attunement and co-regulation, animism and eco-psychology, grief and death work, ritual and ceremony, transformative justice, creativity, and play. All the things. Read all about it at thethresholdcommunity.com. Find us and follow us on Instagram at Tending the Threshold. I'm your host, Carmen Spagnola, and today on the podcast, I'm so excited to be connecting with Sharon Ross, also known as Afrovivalist. I've been following Sharon on Instagram for about a year. I finally wooed her and courted her, and she is here to talk to us about her work as a preparedness consultant. Sharon's also the member of two emergency response teams, the state of Oregon's radiological emergency response, and also the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management's neighborhood emergency team. Sharon's comfortable in both urban disaster scenarios as well as wilderness survival settings. She's a huntress, and she has long-time experience with homesteading. Sharon's also an instructor of disaster preparedness at Saturday Academy, and I'm really thrilled, and I hope I will see you there. I'm going to be a participant. I hope you'll participate with me in Sharon's online event this August 2020. It's called Decamp Outdoors, a preparedness camp for city folks. I'll let Sharon tell us more about that in her own words. So Sharon, what identities do you lead with?
Identities. Well, the main identity that I lead with is that I am an African-American woman. I stand out in the communities that I'm a part of. There's not a lot of African-American women, let alone men, who are, especially 5 years ago, attending, meetups for prepper and survivalist groups, and going hunting and, establishing homesteads and, doing all that out of the normal city life. So I think that's number one, is what I lead with is my, sorry to say is my race, but, I got to start out with that because it's the obvious,
Mm-hmm.
And I was, for a long time, one of a kind in the prepper survivalist community.
I believe that, having been kind of a lurker in many of these communities, they're not only overwhelmingly male, but overwhelmingly white, and so I'm so happy to have come across Afrovivalist on Instagram and have been now kind of lurking in your orbit for about a year. So I was really excited to get to meet you. I'm curious, what were some of the influences in your life that led you on this path of becoming a survivalist and interested in prepping?
Well, I moved here as a kid to Oregon. And we moved to a little town called Sam's Valley, Oregon, and our post stamp was White City. So for a while there, I was just like, okay, there's, as a kid growing up, my mom and dad didn't raise us to be, they're white, you're black, but then they did raise us to know that we are that different. Different enough where people will step out and say things to us, right? So I grew up on 26 acres, we might as well say 46 acres, in this little town, Sam's Valley, Oregon. It was outside of the biggest city, I think the biggest city was Medford, Oregon. And so we were like the one family who visited and stayed as African Americans. I think there was a couple of like mixed families there, but yeah, we were the ones that people would be like, those people. So to answer your question, raising in that lifestyle, because when we landed in Oregon, we were on that 26 acres, there was a 1-room shack.
Wow.
Kid you not. And there was 4 of us and our dog in this 1-room shack, and we built it up to I think it ended up being a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house.
Wow.
And we fenced the property. You know, my mom and dad were homesteading. Now, I didn't know that's what it was back then, but, you know, as an adult and going into this lifestyle, you know, years ago, it's like, I'll be damned. I was raised on a homestead, you know?
Wow.
It wasn't, you know, we had to fence the 26 acres. Hated it. We had horses, chickens, rabbits, we raised pheasants and quail, you know, cows. We butchered our own cows, had our pigs, had a garden. You know, mom and dad did all of that, you know, as homesteaders. And, you know, I don't even remember too many times having to go to the grocery store. We didn't have a milking cow. So I do recall, you know, we'd have to go to the store for, you know, hygiene products, milk, and the things that we can't create on the ranch, you know? So that's where it all started for me. Then I graduated from high school there, and I haven't gone back to settle down, but I've bought property in Washington State to start my own homestead.
Wow. I mean, I am in awe of your parents, the determination, the strength, the mental toughness, the resilience they must have had on so many levels. Not only is homesteading incredibly grueling work and extremely high risk in terms of, you know, crop failure or, you know, unexpected expenses or those kinds of things, but also as the only Black family, I mean, really, honestly, how afraid do you think they were for your safety at any time? Do you think that played into some of their determination to make you guys so independent, was trying to insulate you a little bit?
Yeah, I don't know if I can say that for speaking for my father, because he was a Marine. I saw him as he just had no fear at all. And he raised me as his son. So therefore, there was like, you know, I had a little bit of no fear, you know, when it came to that. When I went into elementary school, you know, he had pulled me aside and tried to explain to me at 6 years old, you know, that okay, let me back up. So we landed here from Houston, Texas. My mom and dad my dad was raised in Austin, my mom was raised in Houston. So all Black folks, okay? So I don't know what came over my mom and dad to just be like, let's move, you know, and then plop us in.
To White Town.
In White City, you know, and in the middle of the country where your nearest neighbor is at least an acre away. The grocery store is, you know, half an hour, you know, things like that. But it worked out. And, you know, we had to be told, even though things were said towards us and done to us, my mom and dad never, ever said, you know, things like the things like Pecka Woods or those people, or they never, ever talked bad about, you know, white people, because they knew we were in that environment. And my mom and dad were open to the fact that, hey, you know, we moved out there in the early 70s. So, you know, it was fairly new for Black folks just to be able to roam the country with you know, without having permission from their so-called masters. You know what I mean? So it's just, it's when I look back on that, I don't understand why they even did that. It's like, why? But I'm glad they did, because I have the skills and the knowledge to be able to live through catastrophic disasters and be able to hunt for myself, be able to preserve food for myself and my family, and be able to still thrive in that. So, I was a 4-H kid.
Yeah, hat tip to 4-H. I am amazed though, like as a teenager or maybe a young emergent adult, were you ever like, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here? I'm going to the city. Like, I'm surprised that you never rebelled against it in a way. It's such hard work.
I kind of did as a teenager. Mom and dad, God bless them, but my 16th birthday, the age to drive, 16? Gosh, it's been so long. I think it was my 16th birthday. They gave me a Ford Mustang that had too much power for a 16-year-old. So, that in itself was just like, wow, thank you, Mom and Dad. My dad got it off of a trade because he did some his side job outside of being, outside of working for the Army Corps of Engineers. He had his own business to go out and on the road and fix flat tires on semi trucks and stuff in the area. And so he was just like this person that was more into, let's learn it, let's get it done, and we're going to do this. And we did have the family discussion around the table on, okay, girls, because me and my little sister, now we're in an all-white community, and things are going to be said to you, and just don't take it personal, but this is just the ignorance of other people, pretty much is what they said. And we did go through, I don't know if my sister did, but I, being the oldest, went through a lot. Through, elementary, junior high, and high school. I was beating up boys, and because of things that they would say or try to do. And, at one point, my dad, I got in trouble, and my dad said, if you get in trouble at school and you get sent home, and if it's a case that you're protecting yourself, you're not going to get in trouble for it. Mm. You will not be grounded, because I know you're out there protecting yourself. And he was pretty much, you got to squash that. If that N word comes out, you got to squash it. You got to say something, you just can't let it go. And I really do think that, I was the first to go through the elementary, junior high, and high school in the community, first African American. And by the time I got to high school, my senior year, there was a Black fellow who came in. So there was 2 of us. There was 3 of us, because my sister was a year behind me. Woo, 3 African Americans, imagine that. So, it was just an odd time. And we as African Americans, I guess we had to go through that to get where we are now. And unfortunately, it seems like things are going backwards, because African American people, do not lynch themselves via suicide.
100%. Yeah. Anybody who thinks that a Black person is going to hang themselves from a tree is
it's going to be rare.
That's clearly, that's not going to happen.
So, that was stuff that was happening, 50 years ago, before I was, way before I was born. I'm going on 56. So, it's just crazy to me to see that things are going backwards. And we as African Americans are at a point where we have to start thinking about truly thinking about ourselves and stop being selfish. We have not been the people to have so much hatred in another race that we have, collected up a community of people, like the white supremacists or whatever, to be, we hate them and that's our goal, to kill them. We have not been those people. We are not that. We'd rather just, live together as one nation, one people, without the color, or hey, just give us our space. You have your space, we have ours, or however it may be, but we're not out there purposely going out there hanging people from trees.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it makes sense to me now, thinking even about asking you that question, like, wow, why didn't you rebel? It's because you couldn't stick your neck out because you lived in White City. You couldn't, as you were absolutely raised, it sounds like, from the youngest age to just be very aware, not in a hateful way, but just to be very aware that you could defend yourself, but that you were in white territory, and you stepping out would be, would have way bigger impacts than the average white teenager rebelling or something like that. Yeah.
I've had bad things happen to me where they probably should have been reported to the police, and we didn't report it.
Right, I believe
because it would put such a big bullseye on us. It would be us against them, or whoever, because there was still a lot of prejudiced people out there, in that little small community. I mean, I made friends with people who were raised in that, Black people this, those niggers that, and all of this kind of talk.
You're talking to one right now. I was raised in a very racist household. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so,
so when you went to school, excuse me, and that is not the Rona. I'm just saying, Rona.
Thank goodness. I'm glad you're actually healthy.
So you can attest to the fact that you may hear that within your home and around your family, during family reunions or whatever conversations they may have about other races. But when you happen to go to school and there was African Americans there, you saw it differently. And so we were able to change that within the 3-year systems, the elementary, junior high, and high school, into with the people that we went to school with. And I can honestly say that, you don't have those kids that I grew up with all through elementary through high school are not prejudiced people. And I would think it's because me, not just me, but the family. My family, they got to react with us. They got to do things with us. We hung out together. So it wasn't as bad as, grandpa and grandma and great-great-grandpa was saying about Black people. So
that's
I
amazing.
think kind of reversed it in there.
For sure. You integrated the community. You integrated the school. I mean, that's a huge gift and learning opportunity for all of the white children who were raised to not only, live separately from Black people, but to never be taught that they might be missing out, and never be taught that there's opportunity for growth here, so much of, I also live in a city that is essentially segregated, but I grew up in a town where Indigenous and white folks, just totally, in half my school, would have been Indigenous or from South Asia or different places like that. And then I moved to the larger city where, for years here, I could go for weeks walking around town and hardly see any person who was non-white, whereas it's not overtly racist, it's just totally segregated, right? And so it's taken a few decades to realize I have to unlearn this because whiteness has just kind of insulated me from half the world. So that's an amazing experience that all the kids who went to school with you got to have, that changed the course of their lives, I'm sure. I'm curious how you experience prepper communities, because it's kind of it's like a circle, right? We kind of have crunchy granola type people, and then they like get their own garden, and then they become homesteaders, and then they get guns, and then they become a little bit more libertarian, and then it goes to the, right wing, and then it gets more extremes, and then it comes back around to liberal lefties that are tone policing each other. It's like it's not really a linear spectrum, it's more like a circle, and we all just kind of come back around. So how have you experienced like both racism and sexism in survivalist communities?
Yeah,
like, do you get respect?
Yeah, at first when I, about 10 years ago, when I started really, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go to these prepper and survivalist meetups and sit in to hear what they're saying and see what other people are doing. And it was one of those, when the first time I go to these meetings, it would be like, everybody turns, all heads turn to me. That song, All Eyes on You? Yeah, that was me. And, it was really, really odd. And I am so used to that it doesn't even faze me anymore. It's like, hey y'all, how you doing? I just walk in all chippery and happy, and they're like, what's with her? But yeah, the prepper community has, I haven't run into any racist things in the prepper community, especially, the meetups and the things that I used to go to. I don't even have time to do it anymore, but I really hadn't run into that, other than the blatant looks like, what are you doing here? But it was never something that was said to me out loud. You know what I mean?
Right. So your life had kind of prepared you for just going there anyway, whether you felt particularly welcomed or not.
Yeah,
right.
I do it all the time. I roll into little small country bunk towns, and when people go through their little town, and people will just be outside enjoying themselves, having a little picnic or whatever, eating or drinking their espresso outside, and here I roll up, and everyone's like stops what they're doing, and their heads just slowly follow my van. Like, where's she going? Do
you have Afrovivalist written on your van?
Oh, hell no.
Okay.
No way. That's a target.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get down to like brass tacks with prepping. So prior to COVID-19, what did you think was the most likely collapse event or disaster that you were going to encounter in your lifetime? Like, what was your kind of pet interest that you were actively prepping for?
It would be, well, first of all, let me just say, I don't prep for one thing, I prep for everything. Uh-huh. Okay. So I have enough supplies. I wanted to make sure I had enough supplies and gear to get me through whatever Mother Nature or mankind is going to throw at me. Mm-hmm. But I didn't think it was going to be a pandemic. I knew one day we would have that pandemic, but I didn't think it would be like in 2020. When I told 2020, bring it on, I was not expecting this. I figured if anything, we would have, if we were have some kind of biological issue, it would be like some type of flu, the flu got out of control or whatever. But then, hey, here we are now. I pretty much prepared for everything. And when the corona virus was being spoken about out of China, I watched these Chinese news channels. And so I was pretty much up to speed what was happening. And me and my prepper friends were like, okay. So we, like, since January, we really started stepping up our preps even more, just in case, because we were following the model of China. What China does, the US is probably going to do. Putting deadbolts on the outside of people's doors and forcing them to stay home. I knew we, as in the US, would probably not come to that, that conclusion, but we were probably most likely going to have to shelter in place. And so when that started.
How did you adjust your prepping? Like, when you say we stepped up our prep, like, would you be willing to share kind of specifically how you needed to modify what you were doing already, or like where you needed to kind of pull up?
Yeah.
Okay, Hold that thought. We're going to come right back to Sharon in less than 2 minutes, but now would be a good time for our sponsor highlight here, because I had a conversation with my dear friend Holly Trular, who is also co-host with me of the Threshold Community, this season's podcast sponsor. So Sharon brought up China, and I too have been tracking COVID's emergence there since mid-January. I asked Holly, how important is it to her to know whether or not COVID was produced in a Chinese lab? And this is what she had to say.
Does it matter to you, do you think, in terms of collapse awareness, whether or not COVID was made in a lab in China? Go.
No. Or 1%. Like, it matters to me in the way that it could be interesting, or I'm always a little bit interested in how power is working, right?
Mm-hmm.
But mostly I would say it changes nothing of what I'm doing on the ground, how I'm connecting with people. And furthermore, either way, it's man-induced or human-induced, in that we either are living... Totally. We're either living too closely or in domination with animals, animals that aren't human, or it was done in a lab, or some mixture of the two, something, like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so either way, to me, it's like we live in a very unhealthy civilization that caused this.
Mm-hmm.
And
same.
I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, right?
Exactly.
Like,
exactly. And I'm going to also be aware of my own power, rank, and privilege, and how publicly having wonderings about whether or not it was developed in a lab in China has a direct impact on people of Asian heritage. And I don't need to fucking spend my time or energy contributing to that.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, how does it make any difference in the way that we're going to respond?
Yeah. No.
It doesn't. So we need to move on. Because again, we don't have fucking time for this shit, people.
That's right.
And that's what we have to say about that. To learn more about the Threshold Community, go to www.thresholdcommunity.com. And now back to Sharon.
So since it was somewhat a flu virus that we didn't, kind of like a flu virus, cold, lungs, inflammation, phlegm in the throat, stuff like that. What we did was pretty much started stocking up on more cold medicines.
Mm-hmm.
The cold medicines, the anti-diarrhea medicines, head congestion, all of that. Yeah. And then anything else that is incorporated with that product, we go out and buy too. So it's like, we were thinking about, we're going to have a decon room. So you go out and you get your 8 mil plastic sheets and your duct tape and, everything you need to seal in that room. So if a family member or a club member gets sick, we can put them in not a decon room. It would be the quarantine room. We would put them in the quarantine room, which a lot of us already had those supplies because we had our decon supplies. But it meant to go out and start buying masks right then and there. We were buying masks in January, and masks and disposable disinfectant towels and things like that back in January. We were like, okay, we need to get this before everyone just goes crazy. And then everyone went crazy on toilet paper. We're like,
yeah, you're like, people, yeah.
Toilet paper. Okay, go out, pluck a leaf off a tree. You just gonna starve. You'll be able to take a shit, but you won't be able to eat because you don't have food. We were just like, what the hell are people doing? Buying toilet paper. But hey, to each his own.
Yeah.
So things like that, cold medicines and Theraflu, Dayquil, NyQuil, Alka-Seltzer, things like that is what we were stocking on. Masks, gloves, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. We were already doing. We started doing in January when we saw it coming, and then in March, I think March 18th is when I bugged out of the city. Mm-hmm. That's when they were starting to suggest the fact that they're going to place everyone under shelter-in-place order. And a couple of my members of my group said, yeah, you're in the city, you're the one who's got the biggest bullseye over your head, we're getting you out of there. And so now I still have my house in the city, but I'm bugged out in the countryside.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad you had a good, safe place that you could
Yes,
go
I do.
to. Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Great. So I think probably every prepper has like their very specific disaster scenario that they'd really prefer not to face, like they have like their own little particular, you could call it a fear, you could call it just like a healthy awareness of some specific scenario that they're like, of all the things that could happen, I'd really love it if that did not happen to me or in my lifetime. So I'd love to share this, and I'll go first. So mine is Ebola, not because Ebola is so hard to contain, because it's not, it's transmitted through fluids. It's highly contagious, but you actually can contain it. It's just that it's the worst fucking way to die I can ever imagine. So I started getting like that. I'd always been really well prepared for earthquake because, Cascadia subductions right on top of it, fire, bug out, those kinds of things. Tsunami for sure, because I'm on an island. But hazmat. Once there was like, what was it, 2016 or 17, there was like a case of Ebola in Texas. I was like, hazmat kit. So we already had like our, the 8 mil plastic, the head to toe hazmat jumpsuits, the
Tyvek.
Yeah, Tyvek, the N95 masks, fortunately. Like, so we had those things. So now I'm like a little less sheepish. In the past, I used to be like, yeah, Ebola is kind of my phobia. And people kind of be like, oh, like condescendingly. yeah. Like, oh, you're a hypochondriac or whatever. So like I've gone first. What Sharon though is your like kind of pet phobia or fear around collapse, if you have one?
War.
Ooh, yeah. Civil war, global war, like world war.
Global war.
Right.
Yeah, global war, because
like
we
nuclear?
have. Well, it can be nuclear. It can be, takeover. Right now, the United States is not the strongest country in the world anymore. And we have lots of enemies. We have walked over so many countries with our bullshit that now we are so weak that we can possibly be taken over by another country.
How do you prepare for that?
You just get out of the city. And that's what I did. Is I started out buying 20 acres, and now I have 100, and I'm going to have 150 by the end of the summer. And
are they contiguous, or you have them strategically?
They're two separate lots. Okay. So 80 on one and 100, and 46 on another.
Reasonably close, like co-located. Yes. Okay, all right. Gotcha.
Yeah. So, that was my thing to do is, if I were to be preparing for when shit hits the fan, and that war is considered that, right?
Yeah.
I would want to not be in the city and be out in the countryside. And so right now I'm establishing my homestead in Washington State, to be ready for if I had to relocate. And it's a pretty much distance away from surrounding communities that if people start walking out of the cities, it would take them a couple of days before they even get to the vicinity, let alone finding our community. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And they're going to hit other places that are a little probably more stopped things. Yeah. So
war is one. I mean, I guess I can say, since I'm preparing for anything and everything, other people, they prepare for EMPs and natural disasters. I'm combining all of that and adding in mankind too, because mankind can be just as detrimental as Mother Nature can, and be worse. So
that makes a lot of sense.
focused on, if we have a war, I know that I'm ready, but that's my fear. All those other things, natural disasters, okay, we can deal with that, but we don't know what the opponent it has in mind for us when it comes to war.
Yeah.
And right now we've got such a weak government that our government won't be able to handle their duties on taking care of we the people. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, look at these last hurricanes. They took weeks before, things would happen for people, and a lot of people are still at a loss on getting their life back together since a disaster. So I am definitely not going to rely on my government to take care of me. I'm just going to do it myself. And that's the steps that I'm going through now. And it's been great because I'm learning about, I've been learning about the EMPs and, and all different other scenarios that could happen to us or to me. And, I just want to make sure I'm covered in all bases.
For sure. Yeah, people always laugh, along with me when I say I'm going to miss the internet when it's gone. And they think like,
Right?
oh, that's crazy. That could never happen. But you're describing a scenario in which that would be the first thing
Yes.
that an enemy would want to take out is our ability to communicate,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
know what's going on. And so
Yes.
it's like, no, people, really, for real. Like this is
a lot of people who have a rude awakening coming, and they are just not going to like it at all because, even during this coronavirus, people are like, yeah, I can't wait till everything gets back to normal. And I'm just like, it's not.
Exact full stop. Period.
Normal.
It's not. Yeah, God. It's so refreshing to hear you say that. Yeah.
I mean, because, it's for me, I think, there's a lot that's been orchestrated in all of this. I don't think these two countries did not know this was going to happen. I think, I'm not conspiracy theorist. Yes, I am. But, I think they know more than what they were putting out. You know what I mean?
Right.
When it comes to the pandemic, I think the U.S. knew a little bit about it, but they didn't take it seriously. And now we're at this point, and now it's just pointing fingers, and it's like, can we just fix it?
Can we just get down to fixing it? Yeah, exactly. So how do you play the mental game of collapse, Sharon? Like, how do you not succumb to despair, depression, anxiety, or even, none of those words I would associate with you just from speaking with you and hearing about your upbringing, but, even fatigue, even leadership fatigue. You've been leading people and teaching people for a long time. And at some point it's like, for fuck's sakes, people, I've got an idea. How about you wake up and take care of yourself? Like, how do you play that mental game?
They're woke now. They thought I was, a lot of people thought I was crazy. I've lost friends over this because I've chosen the prepper survivalist lifestyle. And I've been talked a lot of crap about, but, they ain't talking now. They're like, oh, shit, that crazy lady was right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and your question was how I deal with it?
Yeah.
I don't take life that serious anymore to let it really, really affect me. Unless it's affecting me personally, of course, I'm going to take that personally. But things like this, I just have to just go with it. And when I get fatigued, I sleep, which does not happen too often. I just want to, if I can sleep, a full 8 hours, that would be great. If I can sleep 10, that's awesome. But I'm one of those who's on the computer all the time. I see all the stuff that's going on, and I guess I've desensitized myself to it, to a point to not have that fear, because, when you're watching a video or something that's happening, like the coronavirus, when you saw that, did you have a little fear come over you?
Yeah, I'm thinking about my
Did you
husband
have
or my
that?
kid getting it, right? Yeah,
Did
it's
you
like,
have that little feeling going through your whole body on, oh my God. I was like, that ain't happening. That ain't happening here. So, I just,
okay, I'm gonna
took
quote you
that.
on that. That's exactly so. Whenever I'm like worried and thinking those like spiraling thoughts of, oh my God, what would I do if my husband or my child caught coronavirus? I'm gonna call in and invoke Sharon and be like, great
It's
Sharon,
not happening.
Mother Creator Sharon, it is not happening.
It's not happening.
It's
It
not.
ain't happening
That's
here.
not happening. I love it. So
It's not
resilient.
happening.
So what are you telling your students and followers to do then to prepare themselves for this new normal of living with coronavirus?
Well, since a lot of the people who are now interested in preparing have experienced it, now they're like, oh shit, okay, now I know what you were saying. I understand now. And I pretty much instruct them to just get water. Get your water first. Because here, we're in the Pacific Northwest, we're going to be rolling into winter here in October, 2 months away from now, right? About that, 3 months. We're going to be rolling into winter. Winters get cold. And so, I tell them to stock up on your water, then start stocking up on some food, then start learning some skills. If you know that you're going to have to be sheltered in place because you don't have a bug out location, then get your home, turn your city home into an urban homestead. Okay, start collecting the water off your roof. Start a garden during the summer, springtime. Start your garden. Start designate a space to have your home pantry, and then start just utilizing it. And then start getting your materials. Get your hygiene stuff. Get your canned foods. Learn how to can. Start taking classes to learn how to can and preserve food. Buy a dehydrator and dehydrate everything that comes out of your garden. Volunteer at pantries, at food pantries. Because if you volunteer at food pantries, your payment is a box of food. Take that food, utilize it for whatever you need it to be by dehydrating it, storing it, whatever it is that you want to do with that product, and just store it. And then make sure that when you're storing your food, it's in the appropriate containers. Don't take an old milk jug and put water in it for storage, because for some reason milk jugs has a lot of chemicals in it. But take your food grade containers, go out and purchase some food grade containers, buckets, and start utilizing those buckets. And just start going bigger from there.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more about Decamp Outdoors, because this is an opportunity for people to learn online from you. So when is it? What is it? How can people participate?
So Decamp Outdoors is a preparedness camp for city folks. Over the years, being Afrovivalists, city folks are like, yeah, no, why do I want to prepare? I don't need to prepare. You're crazy. All of that kind of stuff, right? And I realized that a lot of city folks are in denial when it comes to needing to prepare. So that's where the tagline comes in, a preparedness camp for city folks. Decamp Outdoors is this year going to be an online preparedness camp. And I've invited my prepper friends, prepper associates, and anybody else who has a skill that they want to share with someone else pertaining to the survival genre. So the camp is going to be on August 21st, Friday, August 21st through Sunday, August 23rd. And they'll sign up on the Zoom, and they can take as many workshops as they want for a small dollar amount. And, I have workshops, elk basics, where a friend of mine has an elk farm, and she will take you through the life of an elk. I've got another person who is going to share her knowledge on cooking outdoors with a Dutch oven, solar oven, things like that. Survival communications, learning what you need to do to be a ham radio operator, because the ham radio is going to be really the only device that's going to be used, especially when it comes to grid down or war. It's just, and then me, I will be doing the disaster preparedness workshops, along with, I think I'm going to do prepper hygiene, teaching people how to make their own soap, how to make their own laundry detergent, and things like that. So it's going to be a full spectrum of a little bit of everything. In addition to, what's the survival pistol, what's the survival firearms that will be needed, to survive in a survival, and hunting and things like that. So it is so much that, everyone just need to go to www.decampoutdoors.com. That's DECAMP outdoors.com.
Amazing. I cannot wait. And I can think of my prepper friends that I'm like, ooh, let's both get ham radios and let's take this workshop. Yeah, totally.
Yes.
So as we're wrapping up here, Sharon, I always ask guests the same question to close. And, you seem so resilient and fearless. This maybe is an irrelevant question, in which case, redirect however you like. But everybody does have hardship and heartbreak and, losses in life. And whether it's at the hands of a large scale, collapse event, or just a personal thing like bereavement or, divorce, whatever it is. So I'm curious how you personally cope with emotions like grief or rage.
Pray.
I
just pray. I pray a lot. I manifest a lot of things. And, I just suggest, for other people is to, go to their good space. And for me, my good space is prayer.
Oh.
I go to the Heavenly Father and I just pray. I pray about it. It's gotten me this far.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like a go-to skill for collapse. It's good to remind people about.
A lot of people who aren't, the people who, would turn to prayer during a disaster, they will. Yeah. They will definitely turn to prayer. So you might as well start practicing now.
Exactly. You might as well prepare.
I'm just saying.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge, but especially just for modeling resilience and positive attitude and acceptance in the face of disaster. It's a wonderful experience for me to be like, oh, I have this woman that I can admire, because there just aren't that many in the prepper community that are as confident and taking charge as you are in like,
thank you.
And providing learning opportunities. It's so valuable. So thank you for what you're doing.
Oh,
thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. I am too busy to really get out. To be honest with you, Carmen, it's been 2 years since I've been hunting, and it's driving me crazy. I haven't been able to get out and do the normal things, but I'm not mad at anybody, because I understand what I'm doing is the only way that I can go about to teach others. A lot of people out there are like, girl, you should have more likes, or you should be doing more videos. And it's like, no, I'm going to do this my way and in my time. And eventually it will come out. So it's not me wanting to get all these likes and, all these YouTube hits. That's not important to me. I'm looking for the people who are willing to listen and who want to prepare. There's a lot of people out there who still, during this coronavirus, are not taking this seriously. So I don't even want to deal with them. They can do whatever, like me or whatever, but until you have come to that conclusion that this crap is serious and you want to start preparing, those are the people that I want to reach out to. You know, those are the people that got the aha moment and said, you know what? I think we need to prepare
I feel
for
that.
something. We don't know what it is, but we're going to do what she does and just, you know, prepare for something, because I was ready. Even though I was, you know, had all my gear and everything, I was ready for Corona. The coronavirus. She's a wicked little bitch, but you know what? It's waking everybody up. It's waking people up to the point on, oh my gosh. And unfortunately, we had to lose the death of Mr. Floyd. And now we're going into civil unrest. You know, and now you're hearing police officers saying, I can't wait till the race war. And people are like, what? You know, so we're going into a whole new dimension of life. Our lives will never go back to normal because this devil has come upon us and has changed things. And so what we're seeing now in the news and everything, that's not going to go away anytime soon. And if you do not want to be affected by it, you need to start preparing for it.
Thank God for you, Sharon. I am really appreciating your boldness and manner of speech and approach, because we don't have fucking time to piss around with this stuff. Sorry, I'm like being like super intense in my language, but it's like we just don't. Yeah, stop playing. Right?
Yeah, stop playing. Wake up, America.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Come on, wake up, people, because we don't have time for this nonsense.
Yeah,
you know, because all those people may be knocking on my door, and I'll be like, oh hell no.
Exactly. Well, we'll see, hopefully, many of our listeners at DeCamp Outdoors. I'm really looking forward to spending time with you there. Thanks so much for your time. I look forward to
seeing everyone and meeting everyone. Thank you so much. And please feel free to go to Afrovivalist.com or decampoutdoors.com for the online preparedness camp.
That's great. And I'll put those in the show notes as well so people can easily link from their device. All right.
Yes,
thanks,
thank
Sharon.
you. Thanks, Carmen.
There you have it. Get your water sorted out, then top up your food. Get some skills. Improve your shelter so you can shelter in place. And then start dehydrating everything you're going to grow in your new garden or kitchen window balcony or whatever it is. You know, one thing that we did in the early days was make a little still and start making some moonshine, because trade goods, you know. So if you can't grow anything in your apartment, you could potentially make beer or wine and trade it with all those hardworking farmers who don't have time to make their own beer and wine. So, Sharon Ross, DeCamp Outdoors, it's happening August 21st to 23rd. I am going to see you there. Let's get ham radios. Let's do this. I want to thank Sharon for coming on, and I also want to do my listener shout out today to all my listeners in Washington State. I have some wonderful, wonderful people from Chimacum all the way south to Oregon, and I love you guys. I love you. You know who you are. I love you all. Find today's show notes at numinouspodcast.com and the Threshold Community at thethresholdcommunity.com.